Hello here again from Camp to Mead, and we're here today to show you the heating system in our home. And the reason why we got this heating system, of course, was because we believe that we're going to have a time where we won't have any fuel and electricity and so on. So we're trying to have systems in our home that will be able to get us through that and keep us warm through that time, because we get some cool winters up here. So after looking on the internet, trying to figure out what kind of heating system that we needed, I started looking into some hot water heating systems. And ultimately, we got a hold of DS boilers. I'll show you this here, DS boilers. And they had a system. This is the 1100 series. And as you can see here, it doesn't look fancy or anything. All it is a boiler system, heats hot water. It is pressurized. So there's some things that we'll show you because of that. And what this has is a water jacket around it, heats water and circulates. We'll go through how this all works. But first of all, I just want to say that this system does not require any electricity. It can use wood or it can use coal as well. And that's kind of an interesting concept, because if you can get a load of coal that could last you for a number of years, that might get you through a time where you don't have oil for chainsaws or so on. And so that might be an option for where you are as well. So we can burn wood or coal in this, and we've got glycol in it. So one day a fellow contacted me that I used to work for when I did electrical work. He was doing a massive renovation on a multi-million-dollar house that had a hot water solar system on it. And so he asked me, if you want to come up, you can have the whole system. So with that, we got several hundred gallons of glycol. It had 4 large hot water glycol containers. Hot water tanks that stored the hot water once it was heated from the rooftop solar collectors. So we got that whole system, and so we're incorporating that also. That'll be another video down the road. I'm planning on putting that system in the spring. So right now we're just going to go through how we heat this in the wintertime and how it heats our home. So again here, this is the system. We're going to go through part by part to show you. I don't sell these, but I am just really excited about this boiler. If I didn't like it, I'd be telling you that too. But this boiler, and I'm sure there's other makes around, this boiler does an absolutely beautiful job, and we'll take it from start to finish so that you can understand why I'm excited about this boiler. So when I got a hold of DS, there's a fellow there that works there. His name is Ben. If you phone DS, you want to talk to Ben. He is an expert in this stuff. He explained, he drew me pictures on how to put this all together. So normally you would have to have either a plumber or a boilermaker put all this system together to work. But he talked me through it, and I was able to do it all on my own. If I had to hire somebody to do it, that would be just a lot of money. So I was able to save a lot, and the expense of the boiler and of course the piping. But we are reaping the benefits of this. And if you're in an off-grid system, this is ideal for that, because you can heat your home without any pumps or anything. But not only heat your home, you can heat your home beautifully, because there's through the slab you have all the hot water system. You can also do this if you have a crawl space. You can tack the boiler system, the piping, to the joists or to the bottom of your floor, which will heat your floor as well. So we opted to do a slab, and that works very well. The one thing that I do like about the slab is in the wintertime up here, if you leave your home, you have to have somebody feed your fire to keep your house warm. But we can actually leave our home. We've left it for 2 and 3 days, and it won't freeze because you've got that massive heat sink in the slab. and that retains the heat in your home. So if you have to go away in the winter, it's just fantastic. Nobody has to run over every few hours and put some wood on the fire. So, so I usually light a fire around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we let that burn till we go to bed, and it'll go out during the night, but I don't light it again until 4 in the afternoon, because as I say, it's not like you wake up and you're freezing, because this is heated the slab, and that slab retains the heat, and you don't even notice that you don't have the fire going. So it's super efficient. For us, we have about a 1,250 square foot home, and this is the 1100 unit. Heats the home beautifully. And I want you to notice something, is we have dug out a little portion in the garage. It's about 6.5 feet by 6.5 feet. We've put the boiler here. In order for it to work, we had to have it lower than the main floor. So the boiler is down lower, and this is the heating part that goes into the main floor. So I want to go through that system here, but I just want to say this boiler is not running right now, so I'm going to set this on here. And the interesting part about the stove as well is the outside of the stove does not get as hot, because the water, the glycol around the firebox, keeps this from getting like super hot like a wood stove would be. So I kind of like that as well. So because we're lower in the floor, we do have water in the spring that comes through here. And so once the spring comes and the thaw comes, there is water that will seep in through the edges. So what I did was I put a sump pump in. And so when the water does come in, if it collects enough, it'll pump it out. And we've got a ditch along the back where it'll run into the ditch and take it away. So this will come on and off as needed. And our solar system, which we'll look at another day, because I know a lot of you out there are thinking of solar, because if you're off grid up in the hills somewhere, away from telephone poles, our nearest telephone pole or our hydro pole is about 30 kilometers away. So we have to have our own system here. So this will work, and by the time the thaw comes, very interesting, the time the thaw comes, we've generally got some pretty good weather, so we got a lot of sunshine. So this will run this pump without any problem. So that's why we've had to be down. Now, the reason why we have to be down is because we don't want any pumps. So this whole thing uses convection for heating. Let me explain. The water inside the boiler heats up, and of course the hot water in the boiler rises to the top. It really just pushes its way to the top. Well, if there's no way to escape, it's all just going to gather there. But these two pipes here, this one here is for the main house, and it wraps around here. I've got a valve there and comes along here. And this is the manifold that I had to build. It's all 2-inch manifolds so that we have really good water flow. And each one of these loops, I've got 10 loops that go into the house. They're each very, very close to 100 feet. You don't want to go more than 100 feet on this type of a system, because remember, we don't have pumps. Also, we had to use 3/4 inch pipe because that has less resistance. The water can flow through easier. And that's what you have to keep in mind. There's no pumps working in this system. So this, each valve here, you can see on the bottom, this is a return. So the water is forced out of the top and comes around here and goes through these. And you'll notice that this is on a little bit of an angle. And it has to be because hot air rises, hot water rises as well. So it always follows to get up to the highest point. So in here, it's always rising. This rises up. You don't want to have any down in this. So this is always rising up, goes through the flat floor. There's enough movement in the water, it'll push it through the flat floor, and once it cools off, it returns back to here naturally through convection. It'll come back here and come back through and into the bottom of the stove. So each one of these, you can see all of these valves here now are closed. We're going to open them, and we'll just open them up here, and that will allow the water to flow. And of course, like I said, we don't have a fire going in this at this point, but I will be lighting a fire here shortly. But this is nice and cool. I can touch everything right now. These pipes, when the water is flowing in here with it, this is very hot. This not hot enough to light a fire outside, but they're very hot from the water. The water gets approximately in the boiler. We've got it just set around about 155 degrees, and so these are carrying that water temperature. And then it goes back. You'll see I've got a shut-off valve there as well to shut this part of the system off. And then it comes back down here and the boiler. So it goes out of here, around the corner, through here, and then back down into the bottom of the boiler. And by the time it gets back here, it's probably in the lukewarmish temperature. And then it heats up again and is forced through it. So it's just a continual circle of linking. Now there's a few things that we want to look at here because I didn't understand all of this stuff, and that's where Ben helped me tremendously. So when you're charging the system, you have to get all the air out of the lines, or if the system goes down, you have to drain it for whatever reason if you have a leak or something. You want to be able to take the air out of these lines, because if there's an airlock in the line, you're going to lose the circulation of water through that line. And we don't want to do that. So what you do, and I'm going to have another video that shows you how to do this, so you won't, if you want to look at that other video. But what you do is you have a pump pushing water into here, or your glycol mixture. So we've got a tank that we use and a little pump, another sump pump, and we have a hose attached to it, and it charges this line. This is a pressure reducer. It only allows 15 pounds of pressure in the line itself, because once you heat up the water, it warms up, it pressurizes a little bit more. But that's a very safe pressure to work under. And so the water will go in here, you charge this system, and when you do that, we turn this valve off, and we turn the top valve off right there. So it isolates just this. So this is all we're working with are just these two manifolds. You've got your heat manifold, your return manifold. So once you're charging the system, which again, I've got another video for that, you charge them one at a time to get the air out. And the other video goes through that. You do these one at a time. If you want to know how to do that, just watch that video. It's extremely important to understand how to do that. And that's why we have two valves. We've got a valve here and a valve here. So we have water coming in when we're pressurizing, and we have water going out. So it circulates through the system, comes up through here, and it'll come back through here. So this pipe matches this one matches this one matches this one. So what I mean by that is you've got a circuit. You've got the water going out on this line here. That's on this side of the outside of the house. And it goes out, and it's a 100-foot loop, and it comes back through this one. So that's one complete loop. Our second loop is next to it. It goes out and comes back on this one. The next loop goes out and comes back on this one, and so on down the road. We've got 10 loops that cover the 1,250 square foot floor area in the house.
Now, is there a reason that some of these are red?
No, there's no reason. It's just the pipe that I got now. I wish I would have got all the same color pipe. In fact...
Or alternate.
Yeah. In fact, the lighter color, the clear pipe, you can see the air bubbles better. So I would recommend a clear pipe. And also, now that you brought the pipe into it, you've got to get heating pipe. Don't just get any old PEX pipe. You've got to get the oxy barrier pipe for heating. I don't understand all the theory behind that, but I do know anyone that you talk to that knows anything about this, they always say, get the oxy barrier. It's oxygen somehow can't get to or from inside or to outside. So, like I say, I don't know the details on that, but that's a really important part. So at the time when I was buying these, I could only get so much. In fact, it was during COVID and supply lines were very poor when it came to plastic pipe. So I got what I could, and I've got a few red ones in here as well. So the other thing that I want to mention, depending on where you want heat or where you may not want heat, you can dial it down. I can turn these off. In fact, when I'm actually running the system, for the most part, I've got these dialed back. Now, what does that do for me? It slows the water down, and I've found that if I dial it back a bit, I won't burn as much wood because I've got less water going out, and it keeps the house warm. Now, if you've got really cold area, you might want to have that full on. Of course, you're going to use more wood.
Well, when it's minus 35 outside, you'd have them full.
Yeah, I had them up higher when it was really cold. And so I found now with the weather, I've got them dialed back a little bit. And of course, you're not using as much wood. I have used coal in this stove, and coal works just beautiful. In fact, if I had my choice, I'd be burning coal all the time. It actually burns cleaner than wood. There's all this idea that coal is such a bad energy. Well, it's not as good as other energies, like they are trying to claim nuclear energy is the best. I'm not so sure where that's going to go. I'd rather not have nuclear energy anywhere near me. But when you compare coal to wood, coal is actually a lot cleaner. So in that sense, if your option is either wood or coal, I found coal to burn much cleaner. In fact, you get the right kind of coal, you can hardly see the smoke coming out of the chimney. So, so now you can see a few things. I've shown you the valves, the reason why we have the valves here. These are air relief valves. So when you're charging the system, if there's any air in any of these lines, it will be able to come out. And you can see I've got them, I've got another one at the end of that one. I'm not sure if you can see that right down at the very end. Yeah, there you go, right there, yeah. So I've got them at the end, and that's at the high point there. So I've got another one right here. And also on the top ones. Though that top line, I'll show you that in a minute. Those other ones, that's for the garage, and I've got those on there as well. So that's our manifold system. And like I say, Ben at DS, he walked me through that, sent me pictures and all that kind of stuff. And it absolutely works wonderful. I didn't know how it was going to work. I've never done this before. And I'll tell you, when I put my hand on here for the first time and I felt hot water, and then I waited about a day because it takes a long time to warm up the slab, and I was able to feel hot water coming back on here, I was really happy. And then when I felt the slab and it was warm, I was so excited that this works so well.
Now explain how you built the manifold, what it consists of, and what you had to do to get it built.
This is all 2-inch black iron pipe put together with 2-inch close nipples all the way along here. And then this is a 3/4 outlet on one side, and this is PEX pipe. So I have a PEX male fitting into this female outlet on the 2-inch black iron. And so this was all done, and then this is all PEX pipe on there. So this was all put together. I had a vise stand for plumbing, and I put it all together in sections. So I would build a large section, put it all together. It actually took about a week and a half to build all of this because it was the first time for me too. Wanted to make sure I was getting it right. And I've used pipe compound in here. I didn't use the vinyl or the little tape that they have. This is all that compound, that blue compound that they have. Put all this together. All the fittings you can see here have this blue compound on them. Very, very important. That can handle the high heat and so on. And the thing that I didn't know, because I'm not a plumber, is how tight this had to be. I made it as tight as I could. And I got some pretty good pipe wrenches going here and made it as tight as I could. And I had to put it all together. You can see here a union. This just comes apart because you can't build this with just threaded all the way. You'd never be able to get it in here. So I built this part all together. I built all of that part together, and then I put it together with all of this part. So now that whole section was built together. And then I had a union at the end of it. And so I moved this whole section in and just put a union here. That union allows you to put the pipe together without any threading. So each one of these, this one here, you can see this one has a union too. So I built all of that together, and then I put the union on. Really, really important because it'd be just impossible. So now from the union on this side, that had to be built together. And of course I did that without the chimney on because I had to spin it to get it on there. So these are all things that are, especially when you're just learning and doing this for the first time, I had to figure out how I was going to get all this stuff together, which was very interesting. I kind of enjoy learning. And so in this case, I learned as I went. It's kind of like Bible study, you know, you kind of learn as you go and you make mistakes as you go. And sometimes you got to backtrack as you go because you came to a wrong conclusion somewhere along the line. And so it was a learning experience as I went, and I've quite enjoyed it. And I want to share this learning experience because this system works so well that if you're inclined, I would really encourage you to do this system. So
now,
here,
one more question behind you. Where is the actual floor level?
the floor level is right here. Really, it's about this level here. This slab is the old foundation. In fact, I may as well just tell what we're working with here. This was at Camp Tamid. This was an old barn, about 45 years old, an old log barn. It's the only building actually on the premise that has had a concrete foundation. And so this is the old foundation. I don't know how long ago this was poured, but we used the old foundation and we poured up to it on the inside. So we had to drill through the old foundation. And as you can see, we had to drill quite a few holes. So I drilled from the inside, angled down because I wanted to be angling down as I went because we want the water to go up. And then the slab is probably about right there. Actually, this slab is going to be about here on the inside. So it would be, we poured a 4-inch slab. So it'd be about right here. So it goes into the slab on the other side. And of course, everything needs to be going uphill until you get to the slab. And because the piping was pretty flat on the slab, we were kind of careful about that. We had mesh that we put on top of the piping to hold it down. That was our mesh in the floor. So we'll put a picture of some of that. We have some for the house and the garage. So we'll show you a picture of that. Very important that you have to keep that water flowing up until you hit that floor. And you don't want to have, you know, the pipe going all over the place in the floor. You want it to have it nice and steady. You don't want to have any airlocks and so on. So here we have on this boiler, the reason why I love this boiler, I've heated with wood over the years, and I've used different multitudes of wood stoves and so on. This is actually the best stove that I've ever used. I just love it, and I'm going to tell you a few things about it that I really love. Now, this here is a pressure release valve. So if we get the water really hot in there, the pressure is going to build up. Of course, you don't want to create steam, but this doesn't even come close to creating steam. Like I say, we run the water temperature around 160. We'll look at the gauge here and I'll show you that in a moment. But this is a safety release valve. I don't want to show you right here because this system although it's not hot, it is pressurized, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So that's what this is. That's a safety factor. So if this thing, for whatever reason, started to get super hot and was building too much pressure in here, it would go down. And of course, behind me we have a bucket where it will collect in there, and so on.
The sump pump.
The sump pump.
There's actually a metal trash can in there.
Yeah, that's what we did. We bought a little trash can, and I set that down in when we were pouring it. And there's concrete actually all around, and even the bottom of that, we dug it out so there would be concrete all around the outside of that trash can. So that's just not sitting on the dirt. Not sure if that was necessary. It was galvanized and so on. But I just thought, you know what, let's get concrete around that. That sounded like a good idea to me. So that's our first safety in this. The other thing is, this has a little temperature control. It's fantastic. It's just genius. This is built. The stove was built in Pennsylvania, and I understand a lot of the Amish people use it. Got to know some of them when we were down in Missouri, and so they have created this stove so it can run without electricity and without fans and so on. You can adapt a fan system on this stove if you want, but you don't have to. It is not necessary. If you're burning super wet wood and stuff, you might have to. But our wood is pretty much dry. There is a little bit of moisture in it, but it's pretty good. So I can adjust this here by this chain, and you can see this goes up and down, and it allows more air or less air when the stove is hot, when it's burning at its temperature. And that's about 155 degrees is where I've got this, to where this closes off. This will actually close right off and shut down the heat. So it keeps the water temperature at a very regular rate all the time. And you can take one of these off and hook up a little ducting system if you want to force some air into, and that can work off of this is what's called an aquastat. I got the part and installed it because I thought if I ever want to do that, I would have it here. So this is an aquastat. So when the water cools down, it's a little contact there, electrical contact. As the water cools down, it's got a sensor that goes down into the water. When it cools off, it would start a fan. So of course you got to wire it, and it would start a fan. You could draw fresh air into here, and it would flame the fire. But I have found that is totally not necessary, at least with what we're burning here. And when I was burning some coal, same thing. I didn't need a fan. This worked great. So now when I'm lighting a fire, of course there isn't one in here. I have a little light up here that I use, and I can see in here. And this is empty now. I'll be lighting a fire here shortly. But I'm not going to teach you how to light a fire. It's not that complicated. But if you're burning coal, there's some good videos on the internet that show you how to burn coal. Coal is a little bit different. You put a little bit of wood in the fire as you're going to make a wood fire. not quite as much, but you put that in there and get some good coals going. So you light that little bit of wood, and say in about 20 minutes you come back and you put a little bit of coal on. Once that coal gets going, then you can put more coal on, and it'll burn like you fill it up to a certain level with coal, and that'll burn for several hours, and then you come back as you would with wood as well. So that's what you would do with coal. And of course, when you're burning coal, you're going to have a different system in there. What we have here, this works the grates, and I'll do that from here. If you can look in there, this works the grates. Of course, I'm burning wood right now, but that'll get rid of the coal. That's the important thing. You want to clean that out, and that really just chops that stuff up in the coal. What's left over from the coal will drop down into the bottom. And this is where your ashtray is. So I find when I'm burning wood, it's got a little bit of ash in there right now. When I'm burning wood, I'll clean that out every 4 or 5 days or so on. And when I'm lighting the fire as well, once I got the paper lit and so on, once it catches just a little, it doesn't need to actually catch so much, but you just need some flames in there. I'll close that and I'll open this. That allows the air to go in here, and it forces it up through those grates, and it just gets roaring rather quickly. If I have that for like 5-10 minutes when I'm lighting a fire, it'll be going just wonderfully, and I don't need to sit here and worry whether it's going to go. It goes. It's the easiest stove that I've ever used for lighting. It's just wonderful. And the way I use it, of course, I'm lighting a fire every day. I don't have this burning constantly, and that's really good too, because we're not using as much wood. I just light one fire about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll stoke the fire when I go to bed at night, and that is more than adequate until the next day at 4 o'clock, because the slab holds the heat.
And it also heats our hot water.
Yes, I want to show you the hot water system as well. Got a few more things to look at here before we do that. So not going to run through this part of the system. This is exactly the same as this. It's a little different configuration because of my area that I'm in. This heats the slab, the garage slab, and I've got it returns back here into the boiler. The hot goes out here. You can see I've got it turned off right now because we're not using it. Hot goes out here, and you'll notice it's on an angle again. I've got my air relief valves here if there's air in the lines. And this will go out, and again, you don't want to go over 100 feet, and we've got 6 different lines here. These are our lines, returns, and all these ones are our feeds. So those are our feeds out are hot, and it comes back. We didn't know how hot the garage would get. So we thought, well, let's run the floor, the lines in the floor. And if we need a little bit, we could use that. If we don't need much, that's fine too. But we have found even in 30 below Celsius, which is getting pretty close to 30 below Fahrenheit, we have found that just the radiant heat on the stove will keep the garage from freezing. In fact, right now the garage is 10 degrees. That's pretty much the same temperature as outside. This boiler, just the boiler itself, will pretty much keep this garage from freezing. We're getting down to between 5 and 10 degrees Celsius, which is above freezing. And that's really what we're trying to do here, is just keep it above freezing in the garage. And because we have food storage here and so on. So it's a bit of a cold room for us as well. So this we have found we didn't need. However, this year we had an idea. Was it your idea, Judy? I can't remember. But anyways, we had an idea.
We'll give you credit.
Yeah. So the dogs, we were concerned about them when we moved in here. because when we're living in a smaller place up above, we had them in a little basement area, a little storage area to keep them warmer in the winter, which worked fine. And they're outside dogs, so we didn't want to bring them in. We have them outside, of course, for reasons. We have animals like grizzly bears and cougars and wolves and coyotes and so on. So we have these dogs for outside for protection, our first sign of warning that something's around. So what we did was we thought, well, we could build a little bunkhouse inside the garage for the dogs, have an outside entrance, and then have a little house for them. And in this line, the one that runs along the outside of the house runs right along, and we could build this little shed on the outside, and that water line could go right through there, and it would give them a little bit of heat when it got cold. So
just to clarify, the bunkie is on the inside of the garage. When you're talking about outside here, you just mean the perimeter of the garage.
Right, the perimeter, that one pipe runs along the perimeter where we built the bunkie, so it runs right underneath the floor, and it warms that part of the floor. So the house is built on the inside of the garage, the little house for them, but they can get into it from outside, so we don't need to let them into the house per se.
We'll make a little video and show you our bunkie.
Okay, good. So there we have that part of it. And of course, here I have a water outlet there. This is for charging the line. And also down here, that's how we get the water in when we're charging to get the air out of the lines and so on. So that's that part. So that's the heating system. And of course the chimney, don't need to talk about that too much, except I've got the double wall insulated pipe where I go through the roof. This pipe, the top part of this is actually double walled as well. It doesn't have the insulation, but it's double walled. And then we come down into here. You don't want, if possible, you don't want any corners in your pipe. Because when I'm cleaning this chimney, it's just a straight down shot. I do take apart this at times because inside you want to make sure there's nothing there. But this I find burns very clean, and I do get a good fire going every day. I'll let this thing rip for a few minutes, and it keeps that pipe really clean. It's very important. You don't want to have a chimney fire. And what a lot of people do, they want to conserve their wood. They never really open it up, and it's just smoldering all the time. Well, that's not good for your chimney, because your chimney does not remain clean, and slowly over time, all the unburnt stuff that goes up your chimney collects, and it can shut this off, and then it will overheat, and it will all combust inside your chimney. And it can actually blow your chimney apart. And of course, if you're running through attics and stuff like that, that's when you can have a fire. So you want to be really careful about that. So now we want to look, I want to show you the water, how we heat our domestic hot water. If you just come to the back of the stove here, you'll see, I'll reach over here. These are where our water lines for our domestic hot water come in. This is a heat exchanger here. So this system here, this is our fresh water. This goes inside this cavity, and there's glycol on the inside of the stove down here. So this is a coil. So this goes through and it coils around. It's about this long, and then it comes back in here and goes out the top. So I've got my cold water in this one. It goes through the coil, wraps through here, and then comes back here. You'll notice here I have a union here so that I can take this apart and take this union apart, and I can separate this from the system itself. So this is all fresh water. Now, this is the water that we shower with, or if we want hot water for anything. This comes back here and is heated through this heat exchanger. in the back. So here again, this system, we didn't know how well it would work. The coils, the heat exchangers that I'm used to in a wood stove or just an ordinary fire stove, they're just a loop. They're just a U, goes in and out. So you'd be coming in with cold in the bottom of the loop and you go out with top. So it's all convection heated. However, this heat exchanger is a coil. So it goes in a coil and then it goes back the other way and then out. So we didn't know how well it would work. And it was a bit of a new coil system for DS and they weren't sure how well it would work. So I had to make a provision in my system for a small pump. And I got a little tiny pump that I got from that job I was telling you about because they had a heating system, a solar heating system for their hot water, and they incorporated a little pump for that. So now we're just going to have a look at how we heat our hot water. Just wanted to show you the other thing, a little bit of a safety and just an awareness thing. This is a pressure gauge, PSI, and also a temperature. So that goes down into the glycol. You can see that. There's a sensor that goes down into the glycol mix and it tells the pressure that's in there. So right now we've got a cold stove. It's running, it's about 10 pounds there. And then the temperature, you can see that's cold right now. Like I said, the stove is not on, but we run it right around there. And I find that I've got my air intake set so that it gets up to there and it just kind of holds the water at that temperature, opens and closes the air. So that's how I monitor that, and it works very, very well. And of course, you don't want to get it up to 212, but we're very, very safe within that range. And so I feel very comfortable with this stove. It just works so good. Also, we have this tank here. This is a tank, and the purpose for that, it's like a little bladder inside. It's for pressure. So the system will gain pressure, and this will absorb that pressure. I'm not sure how many gallons that is, but it's not quite a 5-gallon pressure tank. So it's just like a pressure tank that you'd have for your water. And that's what that's for. It absorbs a little bit of the pressure in the lines if it gets a little stronger. So that's what that is. And on the top of that, there's an air release as well. Also on this stove down here, we have what's called a dirt magnet. This is not necessary in this type of a setting. Maybe not absolutely necessary, maybe I should say it that way. It takes any of the metal or ferrous stuff out of the water because it's all steel pipe and all black iron and so on. So you do get a little sediment in there from that, and that will take it out, and you just drain that and it cleans it. Keeps the system cleaner. I thought it would be a good idea because we want it to last for the duration of time that we're here. Yeah, those are about all the parts that are important. And now we're going to take this up, and I'm going to hand the phone to Judy and show you this.